relatable.
I am conflicted. Am I regressing or am I growing to become, like, I've gone through a phase. I won't say that I'm becoming better, but I've gone through a phase of like, all right, just throw everything out there. This is Danielle. She talks about all of it. And maybe I've done that phase and now I'm going to button it up a little bit. Or so is this a growth period for me, or am I regressing back to this person who's a little bit afraid to be who I am? And creatively, I wonder, do you go through phases like that where you look at your previous work and you're like, wow, who is that person? Or
yeah, a little bit in that. A little bit. But with what you were just addressing with the mental state, I very much just mentally think that a lot lately. I've been coming up with a mantra, and use it if you feel like it could help. Instead of worrying too much about how I'm being perceived, I worry more about how I'm projecting myself. So, it's instead of worrying about every person you're going to offend or maybe offended, just internalize ahead of time, what is it that I actually want to be putting out there and sharing? And I think it's been helping me, because then I'm not as worried. And it's almost like, you might offend somebody, or you may do something silly or stupid or any of those variations, but don't let it stop you, because otherwise you probably will put full brakes and you won't make her do anything. So
and it becomes for the recording part of things, and maybe you can relate to this in your movies. It's a slippery slope when you start carving things out, because it's like you carve one thing and you're like, oh, but then this thing doesn't really make sense, and then this thing. And because I'm not by any means like this expert editor producer person, it's very hard for me to bridge the gap between all the shit I feel like I have to cut out, and maybe there's some good nugget in there.
Well, don't beat yourself up, because Hollywood can produce tens of millions into a movie and it can get messed up on the editing board and released that way. And you're just like, why did you waste all that money and time?
Right. Ultimately, what I want to put out there is, my biggest compliment, I've said this many times, is that when somebody says, oh, I listened to an episode and it was so great because I felt like I was in the room with you.
Cool.
And that feels very special to me. And I also know that the more I carve out of a conversation, the less they're going to feel that way, because even though it's only audio for them, there's still an energy that comes with that. And if I just interrupted that, without any thought, it kind of interrupts the experience as well, I think.
Yeah, it does. You're right. There needs to be fluidity, which we're going to do naturally in a conversation. But if you put a sharp bang or a dead silence, people stop and they're like, what's happening now?
What just happened?
Yeah. And that's even an editing trick in itself, is grab someone's attention that way. But I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to make a big movie again. So whenever that's possible, I've actually made one full-length feature film, and it's been a long time ago, and it's thankfully buried. I was just going to ask you, what's it called and where can we find it? You can't find it. I think I'm the only one who has a copy of it.
Really?
Yeah, possibly.
Is it work you're not proud of?
No, it was a good learning experience. Yeah. You can learn off of anything, and I learned a lot. But no, there's nothing to watch there. But I went through the whole process. So, and since then, I've just done personal short films and little vignette pieces. But I'd love to work with a team again and make a full-length movie. What's funny, actually, on the film festival circuit is a full-length film. They let it technically be, I think it's right at 60-minute mark. So you don't even have to worry to what we're used to in society. Yeah,
like an hour and a half.
Although there will be some independents who are like, we're going to make it an hour and 27 minutes. And it still gets, dropped into our cinemas. But even 60 minutes, that's a good amount of time, but it's in a way a lot more doable, because it gives you more flexibility to chop off the stuff that wasn't working, because you're not worried about fluffing it and making it extend out. Although, yeah. Okay. One quick funny thing about that horrible movie I did a long time ago. I think my first rough cut was way over 3 hours on it. It was so long. And the whole thing was almost dialogue. I didn't write it. So I'll give myself that one little excuse. I wasn't the writer. But man, that was a lot of wordiness.
And where did it end up?
It got screened at a couple of festivals, and then I actually kind of cut myself from the project and just turned it. Yeah, I was at some point I was like, you can do what you want with it, to the other co-director at the time, and I just kind of didn't need to stick around with it because it already stank. Didn't need to stink anymore, and just needed to move on. Yeah. So.
But like you said, it was a good learning experience.
It was good. Yeah. And then I've had film festivals aren't that hard to get into, really. I mean, the big ones are, but if you make a short film, going back, if we go back to similar to what we had, if you make a short film or a full-length film, I think that's a great way of promoting it and getting it out there. There's plenty of festivals who will accept it. You have to do like small submission fees, but that's just a screening technique. I mean, it stops people from horrible stuff from not even submitting.
I'm curious to know what the film festival experiences are going to be in the short term, because everything is going digital, and of course films are digital, but there is part of all, I'm an in-person experience type of person. So it's not just about, I do too. It's not just about, we can release these digitally, it's no problem, but how do they monetize them outside of sponsorships?
Well,
those types of festival things. Now,
I don't know. I don't know about actual film festivals. I know Netflix and Amazon are stepping in to pay people, right, to have series and films done. One I'm looking forward to watching is Spike Lee just released another film, and it just went straight to Netflix. We get to watch it for free, which is pretty cool. I also think he's a really great director to watch his films at this time, because he's a hardcore advocate for Black Lives Matter. And it's not like all the people throughout his films are marching and professing that, but they're showing you a great perspective that someone like myself can't get to live personally, but now I can see it.
Yeah.
I think he's a great storyteller too. So
Netflix is impressive, and I will say there's only one exception, and I just noticed this the other day. Generally speaking, since I've been watching Netflix for the last number of years, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, they've always been their production value is pretty impressive for their Netflix. Their shows, their movies, their documentaries, their photography is always great. The cinematography is great. It's high value. I did see for the first time a Netflix movie, it was one film. Yeah, film.
You can call them films still, I think. Yeah.
And it was terrible. All of it was terrible. The writing was bad. The acting was bad. I was shocked.
Do you remember what it was called?
Yes. Yeah. 365. DNI. I don't think. And I say that maybe it may. Now that I think about it, it may not have been actually produced by Netflix. I'll have to
purchase it,
but I'll have to. But it just seemed like so much less than what they usually put out there. It was basically an Italian version of what's the gray, 50 Shades of Grey. But it was even worse because the storyline didn't tie together. It just dropped off. It was just awful. And I was like, this doesn't even seem like Netflix.
Well, you know what? I think they might be taking advantage of our situation a little bit too.
And putting crap out there.
Filmmakers are desperate to get anything. Yeah. So they're probably paying them the least they can. They know we'll watch almost anything right now.
That's a good
especially
point.
If they put a good picture as the cover and the right wording or a good trailer.
That's how they got me, because I've hit literally almost the end of Netflix in terms of content, and I saw this one pop up one day, and I was like, "Oh, he looks good," and that looks like it was like a really suspenseful trailer, and then I got into the movie, and there were some parts in there where I was like, holy moly, like I can't take my eyes off of it. But production wise, it was horrible.
One overlapping thing that I'm going to be interested in seeing is all the films that were filmed before Stay in Place that were, because usually it takes at least a year for a film to get finished and then released. I'm wondering, there's got to be a lot of films that are getting finished, being edited, and what's their plan for them. And they're going to be good films, I hope, because they were producing them under their normal terms. Like there's this one film coming out with Russell Crowe, which I'm not really a fan of his, and the film itself actually looks pretty lame to me, but it looks like they were going to make it a big box office movie, and they've been promoting it that it's going to be in theaters on July 10th or something, and I'm like,
how can they even do that? They don't even
like,
well, although
full
I
of
just
themselves are they
also, though, I did just read today, I think it was local, though, and Sonoma County's been pretty conservative about their openings, I think, that movie theaters are coming open next week or by the end of this week.
Wow.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. I like the idea of outdoor. You have fresh air around you. It makes sense. But indoor theaters are intimate, even if you're only a couple people in the audience and they're all spread out. It's like you're all coughing in each other's space. I mean,
I would hope, I know this sounds so obvious, but I would hope that the big lesson learned here is that people are not going into enclosed spaces coughing. Like if you're coughing, that should be the number one indicator to stay the fuck home.
Sure, but what if it's one of your natural coughs? I'm a person who has allergies, and one of the ways my allergy manifests itself is a cough.
Yeah.
I am so worried to cough anywhere in public, even sneeze, because I think people relate sneezing to just as dangerous. And I get bad allergies, so I'm like, if I do have to go out, I don't know. I hold it in. I haven't had to run out of a store yet to try.
That's a good point. I remember when we first went into shelter in place, I was taking my son on a bike ride outside, and he had a cough, and he has allergies. And I remember as we were riding, he's riding his little bike. I heard him cough, and I went, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
like
panic.
Somebody's gonna turn around and think he's got COVID. So that's a good point you bring up there. I don't know. I mean, do you, as a parent, this feeling about how conflicted you can get when your kids are younger and they have a little bit of a cold, or it possibly could be getting a cold, and they have a sniffle, no fever, no this, and you're conflicted about, should I send him to school because I have to go to work?
Yeah.
Or keep him home, or he's not sick or he is sick, and like
it's gonna be
it's going to be like that for everybody. It should be like that for everybody.
Well,
also it's
next school year isn't that far away. It's in the fall, and that's when it starts. The school
Do you
year.
think that the school's going to go back?
I think a lot of schools are planning something to create some sort of atmosphere that they can feel they're doing the best to make it safe, but that's going to be very difficult for a lot of parents. I know a lot of parents need to work, and they can't afford daycare. They need their kid to be taken care of. So it's going to be such a hard decision for them, no matter what variation or level, because every school is going to have a different level of safety protocols they're trying to do. Our school district's already given us a preemptive 3 different survey. They don't know yet for sure what they're going to do anyways, but they gave us a survey with 3 options of a go back to school, whatever that means, however long of a day, whatever techniques they have. And option 2, where they just are teachers doing 2 things. He's on Zoom, and he also has kids in the class. So the kids who want to stay at home can be on a Zoom all day. Or option 3, similar to now, where they it's just at home, you get all the work packet.
Interesting. That second option.
Yeah.
My daughter's getting ready to start a school in Napa, actually, and one of their options, they did a 3-option thing too, which was similar, but the middle option was they would split the student body where half of them would come Monday, Tuesday, and then they would take Wednesday to clean all of the classrooms, everything. And then Thursday, Friday, the other half of the school would come. And so the days that you're not on campus,
she's going to be in high
you
school,
would just
though.
be doing,
Okay.
you would just be doing like Zoom learning like they've